Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. So we're going to have two videos to get today. Jesus is on the lake. The disciples are freaked out. He tells them, "It is I." Now, that's even freakier when he says it is I because of the language that he uses. In the Greek, ego eimi, if you translate that directly into the Hebrews, you get the same thing that God said to Moses. Whom shall I say sent me? You tell them, I am sent me. So the disciples understood that what Jesus was saying here as he's walking to them on the lake in the midst of a storm that's got them all freaked out. Now he basically says, guys, I'm God. They're not handling this too well. Of course, they're freaking out. But was this miracle necessary? That's what we started out talking about. Was this particular miracle necessary for Jesus to walk on the water? Because all of Jesus's other miracles were about helping someone. They were about healing somebody. But who was helped here? You think, well, Jesus, this way he didn't have to walk around the lake, take the long way. I think miracles are designed to be a little bit greater than just taking a shortcut. Why did he do this miracle? Well, we have a clue uh, in verse 52. It says they were completely amazed in verse 51. Now, why were they amazed? Verse 52. For they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. They had not understood about the loaves. So the key apparently in this miracle is something about Jesus feeding the 5,000 people. All right, well, let's explore that for a little bit. How does that answer why this miracle was necessary? They didn't understand about the loaves. Well, let me ask you, when they fed the 5,000 people, did they have enough food to do that? No, that was the whole point. Jesus was asking them to do, get this, he was asking them to do the impossible. And there's the lesson of the loaves. Jesus had done the impossible. They had seen him do it. Now let me ask you this, is it possible to walk on water? No, you are going to sink. Jesus was walking on the water. Was this impossible? Yes. Were they seeing him do the impossible? Yes. Was it possible to feed 5,000 people with just a couple fish and a couple little rolls of bread? It was impossible. Did Jesus do it? Yes. Are you seeing a pattern here? Why is it that the first thing they think of when they see Jesus doing the impossible, like walking on the water, is it's got to be a ghost? These guys still don't get what Jesus can do. Imagine what Jesus might have said. He said, guys, you've been in storms with me before. Remember, I just calmed them. I shut the weather right down. Now we're back to being terrified? Okay, I'll stop and reassure you. But just imagine what we could do if you guys ever get to the point where you stop being afraid and start having faith. You want to see some faith? Look at the next few verses. When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. They got to the other side. This was in Gentile country, by the way. These weren't the Jews. These weren't people who had heard about Moses, who had the law and been taught from birth and were expecting a Messiah. These were Gentiles. And how did these Gentiles respond to Jesus showing up? They brought him their sick to heal. Is it possible to heal somebody by touching them? No. And Jesus was doing the impossible. And they believed that Jesus could do the impossible. There was no doubt. There was no questioning like the apostles had. They believed. Do you see the difference? The apostles didn't recognize Jesus because he was doing the impossible. They weren't in the frame of mind to expect him to do the impossible. But these Gentiles did recognize Jesus, and immediately, what did they expect of him? Can you do the impossible for us? So who had the real faith? You see, real faith is knowing that God is greater than even our expectations. I love the story of the pastor. He and his church were in the middle of a terrible drought, And he said, we're going to have a special meeting tomorrow night and we're going to pray for rain. And he asked his church, now, when you show up at this meeting, do you believe that we can pray to God and that God will listen and he will bring rains? Do you believe that? And they all said yes. And then at the meeting, when they showed up, he said, we're not going to do this after all. We're canceling it. We're sending everybody home. They said, why? He said, because none of you bought umbrellas. Do you believe? Do you expect the impossible out of God? Now, I want you to be careful. I want you to understand clearly what I'm saying. I'm not talking about a very popular brand of theology these days called prosperity theology, where you're praying and asking God to give you stuff. That's not what this is. You see, the difference here is expecting God to do the impossible is, God, I know that we can pray and have great things done for your kingdom. We can bring people to the Lord who don't know you. We can bring glory to your name in places that we never thought we could bring glory to your name. That's what we're talking about here. Expecting God will do the impossible. Do you have somebody in your life that doesn't know the Lord? Do you pray for them? Do you think, well, that's kind of a waste of time? I remember when I was a teenager, I heard of one girl who she decided she would pray every day that Mick Jagger would come to receive Jesus. And I remember thinking, well, good luck. Good luck with that. All these years later, she still hasn't. But is that a good prayer? You know what it is? It is, God, I'm going to ask you to do something that just seems outlandish, that seems impossible. But you are bigger than my expectations. You are bigger than my doubts. You are bigger than what is possible or impossible. God, I'm going to have that kind of faith in you. That's the kind of faith that Jesus is looking for. Sorry about the split videos. We're still learning the technology that everybody else seems to know already. But anyways, tomorrow we're going to get it right. We're going to have a good day. I want you to stay positive, and I'll see you then. Take care.